Hey there, Red Deer. It's Mayor Ken coming with you today for an after council recap. So glad to have Deputy Mayor Chad Cron with me today. Chad, welcome aboard, and a special treat. I have to say, we're in the company today of one of Red Deer's finest citizens. In fact, a former Citizen of the Year in our community. I speak of John Johnston. John, always great to see you.
It's a pleasure.
We go back a bunch of years, John, you and I, back to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters days and Camp Alexo and all those things. And, I just want to say, John, on behalf of the community, how much we appreciate how you have been so dedicated for, gosh, I don't even want to guess the years, but I'm going to say 30, and I'm probably short on that.
42.
42. I mean, Red Deer, 42 years in a space like this. It's funny, John. I was talking to my communications support person today, and we were talking about youth, and we were talking about the challenges of youth. We were talking about the grads coming up and all those kinds of things. So to be here today, especially to be here, with you today, especially. Is terrific. So great to be here.
First question, the City of Red Deer and Red Deer County have developed a new intermunicipal development plan to guide future collaboration and regional growth. During the May 20th meeting, Council approved first reading of the bylaw, which would replace the existing 18-year-old IDP with a new plan built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared vision. Mayor, what are the biggest improvements in the new intermunicipal development plan, and how will it strengthen the city's relationship with Red Deer County?
Well, great question, John, for sure. I think you hit on several elements when you talked about trust, cooperation, and a shared vision. That's really the biggest springboard in the IDP. I'll call it IDP, but it is the intermunicipal development plan and so on. As you pointed out, it's been since 2007. I don't know about you, John, but I'm not quite sure what the world looked like in 2007, but it doesn't look like very much of it anymore in 2025. So we had an 18-year-old plan that we were dealing with. And at the time, you'll remember this because you've been in Red Deer a long time like myself. You'll remember that Gasoline Alley in those days was really just getting off the ground, and we were trying to, really come to negotiate how development would occur and how quickly and what type and all of those kinds of things. So, we've come a long way in 17 years, and if I might say, dealing with Mayor Wood these last 4 years has been a privilege. We've been able to sit down and share a vision, not just for the county and for the city, but for central Alberta, for that corridor as a whole. And while the other municipalities in this particular corridor aren't part of the IDP, I speak of Innisfail, Penhold, Black Falls, Lacombe, those municipalities in particular, all of those municipalities are learning what it takes and growing in a vision for Central Alberta itself. The particular plan addresses changes in how we do transportation, so you'll see more roundabouts, those kinds of things. It certainly reflects the constraints on water usage, water conservation. It talks about Indigenous relations and reconciliation. In a particular plan like that. It also touches on the opportunity for shared economic development, because we all realize that if significant economic development, say for Red Deer County or for Red Deer itself or for any of the other municipalities, is good for the local economy in general. Think of the Nova plant, for example, as an example where a significant investment in the energy infrastructure has really benefited the entire area. So it's a great plan. It took us almost 3 years to put together, 3 years of talks, joint talks between us. So the first reading was yesterday, as you said. That'll lead to a public hearing. I'm going to say city manager will be cross with me, but I'm going to say it's June 13, I believe. And that'll be a joint public hearing between ourselves and the county. And, folks can come out and contribute to that public hearing. But in the end, I think we'll ratify the IDP in second and third reading, and we'll have a document that'll be good for us for at least another 15, 20 years.
During the May 20th meeting, RCMP presented the 2024 fourth quarter report. Councillor, can you walk me through some of the key points presented?
So it's really interesting when the RCMP comes to council, and often before council meetings, I'll be talking with my kids around the breakfast table, and so I talked to my 9-year-old son, what should I ask the cops this time when they come? And my son said, well, ask them if they caught all the bad guys. And so they came and they explained their stats, and they're really interested in the 5-year trends, which is good. And then they explained in March, there was one individual that went on a crime spree, and that's why there's a little blip in March. And so I carefully asked them, can you finish the story? Did you catch the guy? And they did. And he's still incarcerated, which is good to know. And so it was really good to hear the RCMP and to see that the crime trends are trending in the right direction, particularly as you look at the longer version of it. And so the other interesting thing that was announced is that the RCMP is coming to the Western Park to do the musical ride this summer.
And we have a volunteer group that's working with that project. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Mayor, why is the RCMP focused on proactive policing and enforcement?
Well, Councillor Cron, Deputy Mayor Cron, I should say more properly, referenced it very well in his report on this one particular bad guy. So we learned, when I say we, council and administration, learned from the RCMP back in, I would say 2014, John, so say 10, 11 years ago, that 80% of the crimes in a city the size of ours are committed, the old 80-20 rules. So 20% of the bad guys are committing 80% of the crimes in the city. So in those days, the RCMP brought in a program called Pinpoint, where they would target habitual offenders on release. So typically, habitual offenders do what Deputy Mayor Cron spoke about. They commit crimes again. And so if you can be proactive and make sure that for example, their warrant conditions are being met, bail conditions are being met, all those kinds of things, if you can prioritize and focus on that small piece of the criminal element that's doing the major damage, you're going to get results. It took a while, I'll say from 2014-15, for the results to really start trending in a good direction, as Deputy Mayor was speaking of. So the RCMP has been able to successfully continue that program. In addition, they have 2 crime analysts now at the detachment who look at what caused the crime, where was it committed, what was the damages, what was the target, why was it a target, all those kinds of things. So a lot of data-driven policing, and we're seeing a lot more data-driven policing across the country. That enables the RCMP to understand which neighborhoods are most affected. So you have crime statistics now being reported in neighborhoods and so on. It leads for a far more effective use of resources rather than go on patrols across the city and hope to do something. You're focused on a particular section in the city or a particular group of people in the city, and you know where the trouble spots and the hot spots are. So it's taken a far more proactive and in many ways preventative approach. A further example I'll say is our downtown unit, which is a dedicated unit now of 6 officers, plus a couple of community police officers. And they're dedicated to having one singular focus, which is the downtown itself. That's led to a lot more proactive relationship building with people, a lot more contact with local businesses, a lot more physical presence, a lot more visibility, all those kinds of things. It's made the RCMP far more effective in the downtown core.
That's good. Also, at the May 20th meeting, City Council received a report from the Municipal Policing Services on the progress from mobile photo radar enforcement under the ATE program to an enhanced traffic enforcement model led by community peace officers. Mayor, can you provide some more information about the presentation?
Yes, it really was an evolution of a couple of decisions that council made in late 2024. So in September 2024, we received a report from our policing services manager, John Ferguson, and he recommended at that time that we begin to cease, for want of a better word, the photo radar systems in the city. In his view, and research backs this up, they're not effective at deterring people from speeding, for example, running lights, this kind, poor driving behavior was not being turned around by photo radar. His recommendation was that council invest more in boots on the street, more in terms of traffic patrols and those kinds of things, and so on. So kudos to John and his team. They were really 7-8 months ahead of the province of Alberta. The province of Alberta came out and said effective April 1, municipalities were out of photo radar, or at least out of it to the extent that it's still maintained in playground zones and that kind of thing. But otherwise, really the entire ATE, or automated traffic enforcement program, had come to a stop. There still is enforcement on running red lights. You still can get a camera violation for that, but that's the only one. So what we did was we created, as you just referenced, an enhanced policing force of community peace officers. That's fully staffed now. It took us a few months to get all the bodies in place, but we're seeing the results already from an improvement now in traffic statistics and so on. And I don't know about you, John, I'm sure you've never been pulled over by a police officer. In fact, I'm sure you never even got a photo radar ticket. I, however, don't have that same record.
Neither
But I'll
do
tell
I.
you one. I'll tell you one thing. If you're pulled over by an officer, you start confessing your sins quickly, as opposed to getting a photo radar ticket in the mail a month after the
And trying to remember.
Exactly. What was it me? I was only doing 7 kilometers over the whatever, and so on. And you tend more to go to anger rather than regret.
Well, I blamed my wife once until she proved it to me when she got
Point
the
taken.
picture.
Point taken. I was driving my dad's car as I would say a younger person. He was visiting from Newfoundland, and I was driving his car. Got a photo radar ticket in Calgary, which he got in his mail, and that kind of thing. So I empathize with your experience. But there is something more. You get pulled over by a peace officer. They remind you of what safe driving is all about. They certainly, do the basics. Your license, your insurance, any outstanding violations. Photo radar doesn't do that. We tend to just go and grumble and make a payment and maybe again, statistically we're not a better driver for it.
Well, and there's something really uncomfortable about sitting while the traffic's going by. It's very uncomfortable,
I'll tell you, John, I appreciate you saying that because I'm up in the Pines. Red Deer, this is the mayor bearing his soul. I'm up in the Pines a couple of years ago, and I'm on my way to a dance class because I'm in a fundraiser. And it's a four-way stop, and I use it like a yield sign. Nobody's around, so I'm just taking the wide view, and away I go. Well, boom, a good CPO is on me, and he reminds me it's a stop, Mayor. It's a stop. The word stop does not mean yield. And he just did a great job. He was a bit nervous, but I said, listen, calm down. It's all good. I'm the guy that went through the stop sign, not you. And so you're 100% right. I was grateful that I think some folks from the Pines home saw me though, because when I visited a month or two later, they said, "Wasn't that you that was pulled over by that police officer?" Anyway, there you go.
So, Councillor, can you explain what the transition from photo radar to community peace officer enforcement means for traffic safety in Red Deer?
Certainly covered a whole bunch of it too, but there's another element of this whole transition that's a big deal for the city, is that the city was actually losing money on photo radar tickets.
Yeah, good. Well said.
That this is something that costs the city hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And just like you, when there's a time not long ago that we actually got 2 photo radar tickets in the mail on the same day. And it's the vans that me and my wife share. So I have to figure out who got both these tickets. And so it turns out it was me that got 2 on the same day going through the same school zone. And it's just, so that won't happen anymore. So this will build marriages in the city as well. And so this will be safer for the citizens as well, to have more dynamic interactions with community peace officers, and to, instead of getting really delayed feedback 6 weeks later, as we just talked about.
It's a digital world. That personal contact means so much more impactful in every way. So, Council debated a notice of motion put forward by Councillor Victor Dirksen on April 29th during the May 20th meeting. The motion was postponed to May 20th to allow for further time for review by Council and administration. Councillor Dirksen's motion proposes further amendments to the 2026 budget strategy and approach. Councillor, can you tell us more about the motion put forward?
So a lot of what Councillor Dirksen was doing in the motion is trying to put down good principles around the next budget, because our last budget was really challenging and really difficult for the community to go through a lot of that too, and we'll find out that in the weeks ahead how that all lands as well. But just putting parameters on what the next budget that administration is going to look forward, going to be bringing forward in the fall for the new council, and trying to set up the new council for success. And so a lot of principles around, we're going to do, the increases are just going to be around inflation, and then 1 or 2% to be building back up the reserves.
Okay. Mayor, why was it important for Council to adopt these updated budget principles now, and how will they guide the development of the 26 budget? I know you started to allude to that, but
Yeah, I appreciate that question, John. You know, I said in council yesterday that the community was really looking for a signal from council that the 2026 budget was going to be structurally different and take a different tone, you know, a different theme, if you will, which these principles have outlined. So we've given administration some very clear principles, not policy. The difference may seem light, but policy is something that's far more rigid. Principles guide us in the direction, you know, that we want to go. I commended Councillor Dirksen, and I still commend him for really becoming what I would call the chief financial steward of council, and he's earned that. I don't say that in any cheap way or frivolous way. He's earned that. So council has now set the tone for 2026. That was important for all the pragmatic reasons. You know, we're going to have a new council in November, in October, obviously with the election, but in the November budget, we're going to have a new council. That new council will be the beneficiary of what Councillor Dirksen proposed yesterday. In fact, administration is the beneficiary of it as well. So the timing was excellent from the perspective of enabling the new council to hit the ground, benefiting from the structure that the old council, although there will be some returning, obviously, councillors, and I'll put a plug in for my colleague here while I'm able. But that's really what it's about. The community benefits, administration benefits, and the new council benefits from the actions we took yesterday.
Councillor Bruce Baruma read into the record a notice of motion related to parking in downtown Red Deer. Mayor, can you tell us more about the motion and what residents can expect from the upcoming discussion on downtown parking? And why is it an issue being brought forward now?
Yeah, once again, it's certainly a matter of timing and getting a feel for the new technology that was introduced in the city about a year and a half ago, 20 months ago or so. We introduced, the I will say elimination of the old parking meters and the introduction of a parking application and a pay station and a QR code, different options for people to go and mitigate the parking issue. I will say next to snow clearing and noisy neighbors, parking is a solid top 5 grievous complaint of citizens. And I say that with respect. So what we have found is we've done a lot of education, a lot of informing the public how they can use the app or how they use the pay stations or the QR codes, et cetera, and so on. There's been, again, some challenges on the technology side, getting that up and running properly.
I relate to that.
And I'm sure you can, John. Most of us can, So, as the motion said yesterday, and I believe I'm quoting right from the motion, Councillor Bruma stated, despite these efforts, there remains quite a challenge in the parking system as we've put it together. And we don't want people to turn away from downtown because they can't seem to figure out how to, people want to pay for that. They're okay, generally. They understand. You come downtown, you pay for parking. Why should it be a difficult experience? Really, that's at the heart of Councillor Bruma's motion. So he did a couple of things. He proposed, I should say. He didn't do anything. He just read it yesterday. So he's proposed a couple of things. One is that administration, on an annual basis, report to council and say, how is this thing working? Is it worth being even in the parking business? If it is worth it, does the bottom line justify the costs that we're putting towards it? And are we getting enough customer turnover so that businesses are benefiting and consumers are able to navigate it? That's the first part of the resolution. The second part was he proposed an ad hoc, so in other words, temporary, committee be struck of various citizens and so on. People will be invited to participate here over the next, once the motion is passed, and I think it will, they'll be invited to participate. So we'll put a committee together that will say, in the downtown context, how does the downtown feel about parking itself? There's a lot of businesses here that say, keep it. There's a lot of businesses that say, modify it. There's a lot of businesses that say, make it free on certain days or whatever. We're all about trying to support our businesses. We're all about trying to make that customer experience a good one. And we want visitors to our city, especially when they come into the downtown to see the great sights here and so on. We want that visit to be pleasant and seamless. And the last thing we want is, a little token of our appreciation being a traffic ticket. If you visited us from Fort McMurray today, here's $30 less, and thank you very much. That doesn't work. So I'm looking forward. It'll come up in council, I think the 9th of June or so. I'm looking forward to a council debating the issue. The public, I think, having an opportunity between now and then to email us and give us your thoughts and all those good things. But I think you'll see those changes.
Because when it first came out, I had downloaded the city wallet
Yes.
and put $50 in there.
Sure.
I've never used it because I can't figure it out. So now I just find I just scan it. It's much easier.
Yes.
I just scan it, and
Yes,
I've still got that $50 in my city wallet.
Thank you, John, because you haven't been around as long as I have been. That's obvious, but anyway. So it's encouraging that you're using it that way, and the QR code does work. I will say my wife has used it from day one. She's never had an issue. but you're looking at someone, and I was saying to Deputy Mayor Cron on the way over, you're looking at someone who's gotten 3 parking tickets. I've gotten 3 parking tickets. So I empathize with our seniors there who really struggle with the system.
I remember a bylaw officer was about to write me a ticket, and I looked, I need a break. I need a break today. And he says, you got it. I'll never
Wow.
forget that. That was
Good
pretty
to-
decent of him.
That's good to hear.
2 public hearings were held during the May 20th meeting related to an area in Lancaster. Mayor, why is the proposed rezoning of 170 Lancaster Drive being supported, and how does it align with council's housing priorities?
Well, we brought a revised land use bylaw to council in the fall of 2024, and we expanded the permitting of secondary suites, house suites, some people call them, and so on. We made them more available to people, and we allowed what I would call far more usage of them possible. When it came to duplexes, however, we discovered that we had set the bylaw up primarily for houses themselves, the detached type house, and so forth. And duplexes presented a unique challenge. So a couple of months ago, we had our first application for a house suite from a duplex citizen. And our planning department said that until we get our arms around the whole idea of incorporating it broadly, we should create what's called a direct control district for duplexes that want to have house suites. So we approved the one a few months ago. 170 Lancaster came to council last night under a very, very similar situation. When you have a direct control zoning, and I'm just sort of making DC in the air here, direct control zoning, only council can approve those type of applications, which is why I came to the public hearing last night. To this citizen's credit last night, the homeowner who bought the duplex, she said there was already a suite in the duplex, which was really a not allowed suite. It was not permitted. So she immediately got a hold of our planning department and said, how do I rectify this? We still want to have a suite here. We thought it was okay. We've discovered that it's not. And how do I go forward? So she went forward with all the processes and paperwork and all those things. And last night, council approved the application to have a home suite in the duplex, you know. So I think we'll see more of these, and I don't think it'll be too long before we deal with it in a way where our development officers, not council, can deal with the applications. Because you bring council in, you have time delays because of the agendas, and not an ideal situation. But for now, it works.
Councillor, why was it important to update the Lancaster South Area Structure Plan, and what impact will this procedural amendment have?
So one of the things you get to learn in the city is that there's plans for everything. And so the neighborhood area structure plan is it's the medium-sized plan, and that because we updated the next level of specificity down on that, we had to update the bigger level of specificity. And so this is really a procedural thing that it just meant the mayor had to read off more bylaws that we were doing in the public hearing. But so the end of the day, the story is that another suite is created for someone else to live, and that housing is such a major challenge in our city.
Well, what's the rental rate? Only 1%?
So it's about 1%
Yes.
vacancy rate.
Yeah.
Those numbers are old, but that means rents are going up. It's harder to find a place to live.
Exactly.
And so creating one more seems small, but this matters a whole bunch to the next family that's looking.
Yeah.
And so interesting, on that council, we also had first reading of a different duplex that had another basement suite. And so this will be the third one that'll come through.
Yes.
And hopefully, as we see that this is working and this is going to be enough, that we should continue to let more duplexes have basement suites as they want them, and instead of creating such a big process for all of this.
Exactly.
I don't have any others. Was there anything else there from the May council meeting that you'd like to mention or bring up?
A couple things, John, and then I'll be happy, to talk about one of the things I was really looking forward to today. So I had the privilege of attending the RCMP depot just a week ago. And in fact, it was last Monday, so a little over a week ago. We were honorary guests of depot on their graduating troop. So we got to participate in that. And I said to folks yesterday, if you ever wanted to, really experience Canadiana at its finest, it's take a tour of the RCMP depot and really discover 400 acres in the heart of Regina, and 1,500 people at any given point in time on that depot. It's a contained community. It is completely contained to itself. Just a fascinating, incredible, and very, very humbling experience to see these folks that invest their lives, invest their careers in our protection and the enforcement of laws. We kicked off, or close to kicked off. One of our topics today was the RCMP crime stats, and Superintendent Glassford was a graduate of Depot, and she was one of the folks that came with us in 1998, and look where her career has taken her, superintendent here in the city, and so forth.